The realm. Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agreed to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones House of the Dragon update video. Alright my friends, in this video, I have some very exciting news that I must show you. As you all know, HBO is developing a new Game of Thrones series based on George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood Volume 1. This is a show that has been in the works since well before Game of Thrones even ended. If you have been watching all of my videos, then you will know we will finally see what happened during the Dance of Dragons when HBO releases House of the Dragon later this year. Ever since HBO made their first announcement about making a Game of Thrones successor show, I have made videos about this massive operation every step of the way. As you all know, it has been a very long night since our watch had ended after the Game of Thrones finale. Well, now that they are done filming House of the Dragon, it finally feels like the finish line is within reach. Our days of waiting for a new show are just about over. Well, soon enough. In this video, I will show you what George R.R. Martin has to say about House of the Dragon moving into their next phase. Let's have a look at what he wrote on his NotABlog website. Only yesterday, he said there is exciting news out of London. I am informed that shooting has wrapped for the first season of House of the Dragon. Yes, all 10 of their episodes. I have seen rough cuts of a few of them, and I'm loving them. Now, of course, a lot more work needs to be done. Special effects, color timing, the score, and so on and so forth. However, the writing, the directing, and the acting all look amazing. I hope you will like them as much as I do. My hat is off to Ryan Condal and Miguel Sapochnik, who are the co-creators of the show, as well as our amazing cast. So, when will you get to see it, you ask? When will the dragons finally dance? I wish I could tell you. Lots of work remains to be done, as I said, and COVID makes that difficult. Will it release this spring? That's unlikely. Will it be this summer? It could be. What about this fall? Honestly, who knows? You will know when we do. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It sounds like George R.R. Martin is very happy with how House of the Dragon looks so far. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, well, of course he would say that. He is making money from HBO. It's not like he would come out and say something negative about the show. Well, you would be right about that. However, he doesn't have to say anything at all. If he honestly did not like it, I think he would have stayed silent like he did for the later seasons of Game of Thrones. Now, I don't know how many of you were around for that, but during the last few seasons of Game of Thrones, he did just that. Not only did he stop working on Game of Thrones near the end, but he also stopped talking about the show on social media. I remember just how silent he was when the show went off the rails, so I don't feel like he is saying this because he thinks he has to. I honestly think he loves what he has seen with House of the Dragon thus far. It actually sounds like he is excited again, the same way he was when Game of Thrones was about to release its first season. In fact, let me show you what he said right before Game of Thrones aired its first episode. This was all the way back in 2011. Thankfully, you can still find his live journal entries on the internet. This is what he said back then. The first 2 episodes look spectacular, I think, especially when seen on the big screen at CAA. I have a new 55-inch TV being installed this week, and now I'm afraid that it's too small. These were the first complete episodes I've seen, and I love them. Yes, there are differences from the books, and of course there are things missing. Lines of dialogue, bits of business, scenes. But without twice or thrice the running time, there was no way to get everything in. The story is there. That's the important thing. Fans who know the novels inside and out may miss certain things, that's sure. But the vast majority of the viewers, those who have never read my novels, should do just fine. My hat is off to David and Dan and the team they assembled. They've done an amazing job. What he said on his social media sounds very reminiscent of what he said when he saw some Game of Thrones episodes. Remember, this was back when Game of Thrones was amazing, and this was also after Game of Thrones was nearly shut down after David and Dan messed up the first episode. For those of you that don't know, they actually had to reshoot most of that first episode, as well as switch out some of the different actors and even fix the story itself. As far as I know, nothing like this has happened on House of the Dragon. Thankfully, Ryan Condal and Miguel Sapochnik are far more experienced than Dan and Dave were when they started on Game of Thrones. Not only that, but Ryan Condal seems to be a much bigger fan and student of A Song of Ice and Fire than Dan and Dave ever were. Now, if you heard his interview when him and George sat down, you would have heard just how invested Ryan was in the story. He even goes on to say A Song of Ice and Fire has influenced the way he writes.
Tell me about how you guys met a little bit, because I think our audience would actually really enjoy this.
I'm a super fan, and I found the books at this point over 20 years ago, and I loved them. I was a huge Tolkien fan. Lord of the Rings, just worshipped at the altar of it. The movies were coming out, and I had just reread them, and I was in this kind of fantasy mode, and I was like, what else is out there? And a friend had recommended, hey, if you love Tolkien, you should really check this out, because it's really the only thing since Tolkien that really got me up out of my seat fantasy-wise. I've liked other fantasies. I've enjoyed things. There's some great classic books out there, but nothing to me held a candle to Tolkien. But this did, and it was, of course, the first book, Game of Thrones. And I read it, and I fell all the way in. I was all in. I couldn't believe how good it was. I read all three. There were 3 books at the time. Storm of Swords had just been published, and I just devoured them, and then went back and devoured them again, and it became my favorite thing. So and this happened at a time where I was learning to write myself. I was very interested in screenwriting. I'd written a couple of scripts. I was starting to try to make a career of this. I was in my early 20s, and cut to a number of years later, I've now broken in. I still love these books. I'm a huge fan of the television show. I'm watching it all. At some point I tried to get my agents to get me a staff writer job on the show, and they were like, they don't have staff writers. It's just the 2 of them write the whole show. So I respected him so much, and actually learned so much from him as a writer, because I credit, even though the books are prose books, George started as a dramatic writer, a screenwriter in television. So the books are written in this, Dave, you've read them. They're written in this incredibly cinematic way with hooks at the end of chapters. There's dialogue. I mean, you could very easily just put slug lines into those books and create scenes out of them. It's not a novelistic style of writing. So I learned a lot about character and storytelling and atmosphere and theme and all these, literary tools like foreshadowing, and how to write prophecy, compelling prophecy that doesn't seem dinky or foregone conclusion. All these things that I still use today that I learned from those books. So it was just really exciting for me to be able to meet George, and then we hit it off, and then on down the road we go. 5, 6, 7 years later, it turned into a job offer, which still blows my mind that I'm sitting here doing this.
I, for one, think the show is in great hands, and I believe George feels that same way as well. I think we're about to be in for one hell of a ride, and I hope all of you stick with me so we can ride this thing out together. Like I always say, make sure you subscribe now if you want to stay up to date on any and all information or updates about Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, or A Song of Ice and Fire. I still have a lot more videos to make as we get closer and closer to the release date. As always, I hope I will see all of you back here for those videos as well. Have a great day, everyone. I will see you soon. Bye.